What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Monday, November 3rd. My name is Everett DeLorme, and welcome to the Volleyball Journal. Let's talk about some volleyball. Now, it has been only a few days since we went live, and if you are not aware, I'm going to try to do now 2 episodes a week, Mondays and Fridays. I think that there's just so much volleyball going on, and I want to try to cover as many leagues as possible, that just once weekly is really not enough. It's not enough just to talk about it once a week. By the time the next Monday or Tuesday rolls around, then most teams have played 2 matches. And especially once we get into the European bulk of the season, when we've got Champions League and CEV Cup and Challenge Cup and everything else, there's just going to be so much going on. So I really wanted to try to focus on just doing 2 episodes a week, Mondays and Fridays. And they'll just be kind of the same thing. On Mondays we'll be recapping what we had what went on over the course of the past weekend, previewing what the week is that is to come, and then on Fridays we'll preview or recap what happened between Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, and then we'll talk about what's going on, what is going to go down on the weekend. Another little note to mention here on YouTube, if you're not a part of the Discord, then you may not know that I will start doing some live watch-alongs over on Twitch. Now, I think that it's basically going to be trying to decide whether I want to do them all on Twitch or some of them on YouTube as well. I did one this past weekend for Verona versus Trentino, and kind of during it, I was like, man, this is a banger of a match. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would have wanted to watch this on YouTube, but I do want to try to do just some more casual watch-alongs over on Twitch, just because it's super easy, and I'm sure it can be a bit of a bit more of a casual feel over there. Okay, so that's just some a little notes to get things going here as we get going here for now episode 5. We are in the full throes of the seasons. We've got matches pretty much every day. I mean, even today there was a couple of matches in the PlusLiga that I want to talk about at least a little bit. There's one actually going on right now. Olsztyn is playing Lviv at this moment. And are we young enough for Twitch though? In the chat, and yeah, why not? Does Twitch have an age? I was streaming on Twitch. I've done live streams on Twitch for a long time. I've streamed tournaments on Twitch, Beast tournaments on Twitch. We've done stuff in the past on Twitch. Get that Twitch affiliation, my guy. I'm actually not too far away from being able to get the affiliation from Twitch. But yeah, and I also think that it could just be some fun where, I put it on maybe while I'm doing some research. You guys can all see how I research for the shows and just go through with stats and stuff like that. I think it's going to be, a fun little casual way to do some things. And I mean, hey, I'm 33 too, so don't be throwing us old people under the bus. We know how to rock some things. I just probably won't be on Snapchat. Because we all know what Snapchat's for, right? We all know what Snapchat's for. All right, that is enough of that. We are going to talk about a bunch of different things this week. Of course, we have to talk about the Verona versus Trentino match. It was an absolute banger. It was so exciting. It was a really fun match to watch. There was a reverse sweep in the Lega Volley Femminile with Scandicci overcoming Novara. We'll touch on that as well. All of the favorites are still at the top of the PlusLiga as well. Warszawa, Resovia, Lublin all got wins this weekend. And up until today, it was pretty much a 3-dong weekend in the PlusLiga as well, with Gdansk, Warszawa, Resovia, Lublin, Zavierce, all picking up 3 dongs in the PlusLiga. I'm even going to talk about a little bit about the LNV. Over in France, we did have one of the undefeated teams, Montpellier, go down this weekend to Plessis Robinson. And then, of course, we had a week number 2 in the SV League in Japan. A little bit more stability. Last week, it was pretty much all splits all the way down. This week, a little bit more even. Some of the results that we expected kind of came into fruition. Now, first and foremost, we are going to be jumping over to, that is a little too big. We'll have to change that up there so it's not fully covering my face. That's a little bit better. That's how I had wanted it there. Yeah, jumping over to the Lega Volley in Italy. It was a pretty normal weekend in so many ways. I'll just go down some of these results that we had this weekend. Perugia took down Padova 3-0. Lube took down, oh wait, I'm on the wrong week. I apologize. Let's restart that. Week number 4 here in the Lega Volley. Lube took down Cisternà 3-1. Verona took down Trentino 3-1. Milano took down Monza 3-1. Regers with a walk-off ace in that one. Had to feel bad for Eric Roars in that match. Perugia took down Modena 3-1. Padova takes down TGE Grottazzolina, still with no wins this season, but that's a big win for Padova in their strive to not get relegated and maybe trying to get that 8th and final playoff spot. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself. So many things could happen, but as you know, I've already kind of tiered these off. And then Piacenza pulling off the reverse sweep on Cuneo. Looks like Piacenza tried to maybe rest some of their guys, maybe give some other guys some chances, and it just didn't work out. But first and foremost, we do have to talk about what was the most entertaining match of the weekend: Verona against Trentino. First set went to Trentino 25-21, and I mean, they looked like they were in control, and then Verona absolutely just steamrolled them after that, 25-15, 25-21, 25-18 in favor of the team from Romeo and Juliet's hometown. And now Verona, of course, as everyone expected, was led by Nomori Keita. He was outstanding in this one, 26 points. He was 17 for 32. He had a 40% efficiency, and I mean, that efficiency was way higher. In the fourth set, he was clearly just messing around a little bit and, having a bit of Engapeth fun and just really dominating. But the big number for him, 8 aces. 8 aces in this match. He had 8 of the 9 aces for Verona, 6 of them coming in set number 2, and he absolutely dominated, right? He is so good from the baseline. He's so electric, and when things are going good, they are going real well. And honestly, one thing that really impressed me by Keita in this match was his defense. His ability to sit back on the baseline with his heels on the baseline or even behind the baseline and play that 6-back really well. And he made a number of digs to just keep the ball alive. And with this Verona team, they're so good on the outside, and Micah is ready to run a bit of a marathon, I guess, is able to track down some things, and they keep balls alive. They really do keep some balls alive. And you can see that by looking at Trentino's numbers. They really struggled to score in this one. It was a much different team on either side of the net, as Verona was so good offensively. They hit a 62% with a 52% efficiency, and they're so deadly when they are in system. And then, if we look at the passing numbers from both of these teams, 38% positive for Trentino, 45% positive for Verona, and more specifically in set number 3, they were 31% perfect as well, which really just helps open things up. I find that Micah is really cooking with this offense. He really is. He has a fantastic outlet in Keita, and it does seem like you can just kind of toss the ball up from Keita, and his ability to hit kind of like, he's almost reminds me of Chendenjeze in a way, where he's going to hit balls kind of past himself. He's going to watch it go almost over to his left shoulder, and he's going to reach across and bring it back almost horizontally to be able to hit some gnarly angles. And he hits it with such pace too every single time. It's so hard to deal with. But Micah, it's very clear, and I was almost surprised that Trentino didn't really pick up on this, that, they really, like Micah early in the set is going to feed the middles. He is. Early in the set, he's going to give it to the middles, and we saw that they are both pretty good in this one. Marco Vitelli went 5 for 5 offensively. Lorenzo Cattegia was 4 for 7 overall. And it's just early on, He establishes the middles, usually on a bit of a 31, gets them moving, and he just holds. He held the Trentino middles so well. And then there, it's just quick dishes out to the outside. And I think what's most important from Micah is that he's really pushing it all the way to the antenna. And we've seen like Mozic bounce line. We've seen Keita bounce line. We've seen Darlin especially hit that backdoor shot. And it just leads to a really fast and really exciting offense. I mean, as I said, Keita was outstanding, 17 for 32. Actually, his serve receive wasn't terrible. I'm interested to see how it develops throughout the year, because often on float serves, he was just standing up and just taking them with his hands, right? Just stepping up, taking the ball first time with his hands, which does kind of pull him out of the pipe a little bit, and that back row play if he is in the back row. But especially when he's in the front row, he's so athletic that oftentimes he doesn't even need an approach. And Micah just kind of sets him into that far gap, and he's able to score. But other than that, Darlin, 14 for 20 with a 60% efficiency, and Mozic, 13 for 20 with a 55% efficiency. So, they dominated from the baseline. They had 9 aces, 23 errors, compared to Trentino, only 5 aces, 27 errors. And serving is really what dictated this match, right? Verona was pretty decent, like above 44% positive throughout the entirety of the match. But you see here, if you're watching online, only 6% perfect in that first set. And that's when Trentino was serving the best. That's when they got 3 of their 5 aces. Micheletto got 1 or 2 in the first set. That's when Micheletto got 5 of his 11 points was in the first set. We'll talk about him in just a second. But it was very clear that, to me, Trentino wasn't serving tough enough. And Faure is a guy that they're expecting to go out there and put on some pressure, and he missed over 50% of his serves with 8 errors on 15 attempts. He did get 1 ace later on in the match, but then at that point, it was a little too late. He was good offensively, 14 for 25, hitting a 56%, but Micheletto, I thought that might have been one of the worst matches I've seen from him in a while. Offensively was really not great. He was 8 for 29 offensively, with a 13% efficiency, which is not Micheletto-like numbers at all. And then defensively as well, passing, 27% positive, 18% perfect. Now, just the way that they move Micheletto around, oftentimes like he's almost kind of in motion when he's getting served, so that can kind of expect it. But he even said in a post-match interview that was on the Trentino Instagram channel, and side note, Instagram is now naturally translating things, which I think is awesome because it means I can actually read it. But he even said that, they need to be better. They have a lot to work on if they want to be the team that they're expecting to be. And that's 2 matches in a row, 2 matches in the same week that Trentino has really struggled in serve receive. And now, unfortunately, I think a lot of it has to come down to Jordi Ramon. He just is clearly getting targeted. Teams are looking to serve him and Lorenzano. And Lorenzano had a hard time handling the heat. He passed all right at times in this one. I mean, he did have 33 targets, passed 48% positive, 24% perfect, but he also got aced 5 times, right? He had ace more than half of the times. And it is really tough out there with Keita. But Lorenzano is a guy who wants to be the number 1 libero for Italy. So he needs to be able to take that kind of heat on a regular basis, and he really just wasn't. And, not only is the receive not good enough for Trentino, but the serving as well just isn't strong enough. And I'll go back to Micheletto. I mean, he did have 2 aces, but there was a number of occasions where he's serving what I would call muffins, and he's coming down and immediately, like, visibly frustrated with himself. I don't know if there's been times when he's trying to serve short, but it's just around the attack line, just in front of Mozic, he's able to step in, or just in front of D'Amico, and they're able to step in and pass a pretty good ball. And with Christensen in system, and especially the way that he's establishing those middles early, it makes it really, really difficult for teams to defend them. And now I found that this is 2 matches in a row where we have fast offenses. And I mean, we have to admit that both Lube and Verona run the fastest offenses in the Lega Volley and 2 of the fastest offenses in the world. But still, like, Trentino is a team that is the defending Scudetto champions, and they want to get back there again. And right now, I don't know if they can. I really don't. This is a team that has been struggling and have a lot of work to do. And now, especially, like, they need to be able to open up down the middle. They need to have a little bit of room down the middle to swing. Torvi was pretty good in this one. He was 5 for 9 with 2 blocks. Flavio was 6 for 9, but did have an error as well. But I kind of like to me, Trentino's offense really just became 2-dimensional. It was either Micheletto or it was Foch. And Foch had a pretty good game offensively. Micheletto did not. But at no point did they really open things up and go to Jordi Ramon. And while he wasn't passing the best, he also got aced. He got aced 3 times, but also missed 5 serves. I mean, just everyone was missing on the Trentino side of things, except for Flavio, who's just hitting a float serve over. And that's part of the reason why he has the least amount of attempts as well too. But I kind of want to give, like, if Micheletto is struggling like that offensively and only hitting a 28% with a 13% efficiency, then go to Ramon. This is a guy who knows how to hit against multiple blocks. This is a guy who knows how to score. He was 8 for 15 in this one with a 53% efficiency. He didn't make any errors, didn't get any blocks. And I mean, that is partly because he is almost like a secondary or a tertiary option in this offense. But still, I don't know. There's not much changing on the Trentino side of the net right now. And it was a really good win for Fabio Soli, too, who was with Trentino last year, helped them win that Scudetto. Then they moved on to Mendez, and, I'm not entirely sure if it was Soli that left first or maybe they went and got Mendez first, but regardless, that must be a really, really nice win for him. And then the way that, this Verona team is playing right now is just really exciting. You've got 3 young, really dynamic outsides who are able to put the ball away, and I think it's just a really fun watch. I really enjoy it. And I still think it's a little early to apologize for, doubting them in my preview, but I think we're getting there. We're going to have to see, how they do in the second half of the season. We'll have to see how they do up against Lube and against Perugia. And, remember that my biggest criticism is that they weren't able to get the job done in the playoffs. So them being able to win a first-round matchup is going to be paramount. Now, already with this win, they're really slotting themselves nicely to finish in the top 3. And also, let's be honest, that the Lega Volley is not at the strength that it was in past years. Last year they finished 4th in the league, and then they had to play a still pretty stacked Piacenza team in those quarterfinals. So, Verona, hats off to them because they were really, really good in this one. It was a lot of fun to watch, and they're just a fun team to watch, especially when they're playing at home because you've got the lights and everything. It's just a really, really fun watch. And another opinion in the chat, Trentino looks so stale. Absolutely. They absolutely did. Like, I don't really know how much longer they can just resort to setting like a medium ball offense to Micheletto and Foch. Like it is like abundantly clear to me that Micheletto needs to be the best player in the gym if this team is going to succeed. And I don't think that's a good spot for any team to be in the world, right? If you have to rely on Micheletto that much, I don't think it's great. And I do think that while his receive is a big part of the issue for Trentino, but I mean, I think you could say the exact same thing about Lorenzano as well too. I think Ramon needs to be featured in that offense a little bit more. I think it needs to be a little bit more dynamic, a little bit faster. And, I think you need to move your back row ball around a little bit more. I think you need to move your middles a little bit more as well. They are just kind of playing straight up. And for me, it's not enough. Is there any information about Lavia return? No information whatsoever about Lavia's return. Honestly, I think that we can just almost assume that he won't be playing this season. Maybe not until the end of the year. I mean, he broke his hand, broke his finger, so we'll see what kind of timeline he has back. But even then, like, there's going to be an adjustment period as well too. Like, he's not going to come back at 100%. So, you know, if you are Trentino now, it is like you don't want to put yourself in too bad of a spot. So it's been a little bit difficult. But as I said, Verona now at the top spot. Oh, that's not the standings. Where did I? Oh, I guess I didn't bring out the standings. But Verona in that top spot right now in the Lega Volley. You know, they have their 4 wins, same as Perugia. However, they have done it all in 3 or in 4. So they have yet to go to 5 yet. They've only lost 2 sets on the year. But Verona with another really tough matchup coming up in this weekend, because you're going to have them going to be taking on Lube. And I was thinking about doing a preview for that match, but that I think I'm going to wait until Friday's episode, just so we don't talk about them too much here. And that's another reason why we have the Friday episodes as well. But yeah, this weekend is actually going to be day number 6 because of how everything has moved around for the Italian Cup, which is still a bit of a disaster. Lube will be taking on Verona. Piacenza will be taking on Perugia. Milano will be taking on Cotatolina. Modena will be taking on Padova. Monza will take on Cisterna. And Cuneo will take on Trentino. And Trentino definitely needs that matchup against Cuneo just to get a little bit of confidence back. They are 0 for 2 this week, losing to Lube and losing to Verona here. So they've got a lot of work to do. All right. Moving forward, just quickly throughout the rest of the week for the Lega Volley, as I mentioned, Piacenza did pull off the reverse sweep against Cuneo. Now, Piacenza started with Bergman. He wasn't great, 1 for 5 offensively, and so they subbed him out for Andringa in the first set. Andringa wasn't great either, 2 for 7, but with a 0% efficiency as well. And then finally, they brought in Jose Miguel Gutierrez in the second, and he helped turn everything around. He was 10 for 17 offensively with a 52% efficiency. He also had an ace. But then, you know, Alessandro Bovalenta, the young right side, was having a bit of a hard time. I watched some of the match back, and I mean, I hate to harp on it, but you have Dragan Travica out there setting him, and it seems like he's chasing the ball all over those right side sets. It's no different than when Perugia had him as their setter years ago, and you had Shawan Vernon Evans and then Matsi Mujai on the right side, and he couldn't set to them. Everything dies low and on the inside, and it's a difficult ball to hit. You know, either it's dying low to the inside or it's flying past him way too fast. But they took out Bovalenta, brought in Henri Leon, who was decent. I wouldn't say he was fantastic. He ended up with 12 points, 7 for 16 with an 18% efficiency, but he did have a big 4 blocks and an ace. So helped out that way. Efe Mandaracha, of course, was the linchpin of it all, going 16 for 32. He continues to lead them so well. He had a 37% efficiency, and then also passed 62% positive and 31% perfect on 29 targets. So he has been an absolute workhorse for this team and doing well. You know, I talked about it in my preview that I thought that he was going to be the centerpiece of the team, and since he's come back, it has clearly been the case. A lot of fun to watch Efe Mandaracha. And then Robert Landy Simone out there with a classic Landy line, 6 for 8 in attack with 4 blocks and 1 ace for a total of 11 points. So Piacenza able to pull off the reverse sweep on Cuneo. And I mean, you do have to feel for Cuneo. They opened up 2-0, 27-25 in the first, 25-18 in the second. But then, you know, Piacenza just goes and makes those changes, immediately jumps out to a big 8-3 lead. And then it was 25-15, 25-20, 15-10 in favor of Piacenza. And it was just a bit of a sloppy game for Cuneo. Cuneo had one unforced error through sets 1 and 2, and then they had 13 through sets 3 for 5, including 5 in the 5th. Just really not what you want to see. But overall, not a bad result for Cuneo to get a point out of this one. Nathan Farrell continues to be pretty good, 19 for 38. His efficiency was pretty low, but still not too bad. I would like to see a little bit more from Marko Sedlicek, though. Only 11 for 29, and I'd like to see him kind of open things up a little bit. But Piacenza still out there doing some good things, getting another win this past weekend. Another team who picked up a win, Milano, still doing it without Czestochowa. So their rookie setter, Leonardo Barbanti, is still running the show. Did a pretty good job this week. His team hit a 50%, not so good on the efficiency side of things, though. But they are putting up a big block, 15 blocks as a team for this Milano team in just 4 sets of play. 4 blocks for each of their middles, 4 for Di Martino and 4 for Scandicci. But the big story from Milano has to be Ferry Reger's 35 points. 35 points in 4 sets of play is ridiculous. 29 for 41 with a 58% efficiency, 3 aces and 3 blocks from Regers, just putting the team on his back. As I mentioned before, finishing with the walk-off aces. Monza they could have sent it to 5. They could have sent it to 5. They brought in Martilla late into that 4th set, and looks like they were doing some good things, but ultimately, Milano is able to pull it back. Roars was all right in his return, 11 for 30 overall, with Christian Padar leading them to score with 17 points, 14 for 36. I think this Monza team it's less dysfunctional than last year's team. That's the best way to put it, in my opinion. Also, 13 points for Martin Atanasov in this match. Now, a couple other matches just to touch on. Padova took down Grottazzolina. As I mentioned before, Padova having a good match by Mattia Orioli. 18 for 29 with 3 blocks. He also had 23 targets on service, even past a 43% positive, so not bad at all, and a pretty high efficiency as well for Orioli. And on the other side of the net, Grotta just not finding the groove that they were able to find last year, late on in the season. Just Amir Golzadeh out there scoring. He was 20 for 41, leading them with 23 points, but he did get blocked 7 times. And to me, watching Grotta's offense, it's just a little too predictable. A little too predictable, and I'm going to be interested to see what they can kind of do if they can change it up further down the line. And then Lube getting a 3-1 win over Cisterna. Not a great game from Alex Nikolov, 13 for 28 with a pretty low efficiency. Lube missing a lot of serves in this one too. Should have been able to close it out in 3, but Cisterna did a not bad job to come back on it. Tommaso Barotto finally putting up some numbers out there, 12 for 24. And then, of course, I got to talk about it. My guy, Landon Curry, lights out passing once again on 23 targets. He was 48% with 30% perfect. Just holding it down for Cisterna. Sooner or later, teams are going to learn not to pass serve up against him, and we'll see how it goes. Also, as I mentioned, Perugia took down Modena 3-1, but I didn't really watch that one at all, so I'm not really going to talk about it. Okay, just looking at the standings here real quick. Verona sits at top at 4-0. Perugia is in second at 4-0 also, but with 11 points. Lube is 3-1 with 10 points. Modena, then you've got just a log jam in the middle. Modena, Trentino, Piacenza, Milano, and Padova all sitting at 2-2. Not much separating them from points. And Grotta all the way down there at the bottom with 0-4 so far this year and only 1 point on the season. So that's going to wrap things up for the Lega Volley preview. I don't think there's any midweek matches this week, so you guys will have to tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's no midweek matches this week, and it'll just be the matches on Sunday, November 9th. Okay, moving on to the Lega Volley Femminili. Other than the one matchup that we're going to talk about, a pretty standard week in the LVF, Conegliano, a 3-1 decision over Bergamo. Milano with the 3-0 decision over Monviso. Scandicci getting the reverse sweep on Novara. We'll talk about that in just a second. Macerata, actually, I might want to touch on that one. Macerata getting a big win over Busto. Chieri went down 1-0 and then came back on Valfolia. Firenze continues to stay in the thick of it with a nice 3-0 three-dong win over Perugia. And then Consolini with their first win over the year, a nice 3-dong over Cuneo. And I have no idea what to think about this Cuneo team. This Cuneo team can 3-dong Scandicci and then turn around and get 3-donged by Consolini. Now, it does come down to Erica Pritchard. She was fantastic at the match against Scandicci and then kind of has fallen off a little bit since then. Does kind of remind me of her season last year for Grand Rapids in the PVF, but I mean, we won't talk about this one too much. But back to the Novara versus Scandicci matchup. It was truly a tale of two different matches, right? The first set, we saw Novara just playing Novara volleyball. And I even wrote about it in the Discord when everyone was hanging out. And I was just like, I love watching Novara play. They play such a fun style of volleyball. And they took it 25-22, 25-19 in the first two. And you know what? It's tough because they actually led. They actually led the majority of that third set. They were up 8-6. They were up 16-14. They were up 21-18. And then things just started to turn around as Scandicci took the third 29-27, went on an absolute romp in the fourth 25-13, and then 15-11 I think is a little bit misleading because it made it seem closer than it was, and I thought there was some missed opportunities for Scandicci to take that even closer. But the way it was is that early on in this match, Scandicci went with Bossetti on the left side and Camilla Weitzel down the middle. And, Antropova really struggled through the first two sets. She had a combined 7 points in the first two sets. She had 5 in the first, going 5 for 8, and then she had 2 in the second. And you know what? On the Novara side of things, it was just kind of, they don't have Tatiana Tolak, which is a big thing to mention. So they're playing Britt Herbots on the right side. And with that 3 outside system, it seems like Kambi just kind of could pick where she wanted to go. And the first set, it was dominated by Ishikawa and Alsmeyer. Set number 2, going back to Amber Agility and Sarah Bonifacio, who really led them down the middle. And they were just eating up Scandicci down the middle time and time again. It was good pass and kill from the middle, good pass and kill from the middle. And then we started seeing the passing go down for Novara. That was a big thing. And there was a substitution made for Scandicci as well. They brought in Sarah Franklin on the left side in place of Caterina Bossetti, and then also brought in Lyndon Wakalor down the middle in place for Camilla Weitzel. And to me, that kind of made all the difference because I think that Franklin, I thought this was a fantastic Sarah Franklin match, arguably her best match as a pro, coming in off the bench, going 12 for 22 with a 50% efficiency. She also got a block. And then on 16 targets, passed 31% positive, 63% positive, 31% perfect. And that was huge for Sarah Franklin and huge for the rest of the Scandicci team because that really helped open some things up. It wasn't just Avery Skinner who was scoring for them anymore. They were able to open some things up to Antropova. Antropova was unreal after that point. She had 7 in the third, totaling her scoring total from the first 2 sets, and then 10 in the fourth. Just absolutely dominating. And Scandicci really started to feel it at that point. They really started to get things going. And, it looked like, oftentimes we kind of see that where, teams will even it up at 2-2, and then the team that won the first two sets win in 5 because they finally picked up on what the other team was doing. But I thought the 5th set was an absolute masterpiece by Majanovic. And whereas set number 4 was all about Antropova and she scored 10 points. And then set number 5, she starts spreading that ball around. She didn't even go to Antropova until after the side switch. It was 8-5 and she hadn't even gone to Antropova. Instead, she went to Graziani twice. She went to Bonifacio, not Bonifacio. Who's their other middle again? Why am I? Oh, Linda Nwakalor. Sorry, I apologize. Linda Nwakalor. So both of them had 2 kills in the early goings of that 3rd set, or of that 5th set, sorry, and really spread that ball around. Whereas if you looked on the other side of the net, it was just so predictable from Carlotta Cambi, is that if it was a good pass, they were going to a middle, and that led to a massive block by Graziani in the 5th set as well too. Just a big one-on-one, and then if it was an off pass, they were going to the outside, and it just needed to be changed up. It was, talking about Trentino with a stale offense. I really thought Novara had quite a stale offense in this one too. Weren't really mixing it up all that much, whereas Maya really showed her veteran presence and was like, all right, you guys are expecting me to just defeat Antropova. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just move that ball around and I'm going to keep things interesting. And that's exactly what she did. I was really, really impressed by her in that 5th set. I'll be honest, I didn't really watch the 4th all of that much. I kind of expected the way the 3rd set finished for Novara to just jump back on that horse, to kind of started doing some things around the house, just puttering around the kitchen and whatnot. And then I looked up and Scandicci was absolutely thumping him. Right? And that's what happens when Antropova wakes up. Now, one thing I will say is that Antropova's serving this season has not been kind of what we've come to expect from her. And last year, why is this not coming up? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Last year, she had one of the best serving. I mean, last year she had one of the best statistical years ever. And I was really, really impressed by how she played. But her serving this year has not quite been the same, but still she's been so good. So if she's going to be able to play like this while not utilizing one of her best options, which is her serving, I think that's really dangerous for other teams. I think it's really, really dangerous for other teams, because now this Scandicci team is picking up a bit of momentum. Remember, they won against Milano, and they also have now won against Novara as well. So a really big 3-0 reverse sweep for Scandicci in this one. And you really know that this Novara team really wants Tatiana Tolok back. They absolutely have to want her back, because I don't know. I actually don't think that Herbots does a terrible job, but it just seems like their offense just isn't working as nicely as it could. One thing I will have to say, though, Amber Agidi has been absolutely unreal, right? Another match where she's up there, 17 points down the middle is huge. She's 9 for 13 with 4 blocks and 2 aces. That's not even her best match of the game. She had a 19-pointer early on this year. Indy Bynes did come in a little bit, and she was 1 for 4 with a 0% efficiency. But still, if you're Novara right now, you have to expect that this is that, I bet Novara is going to try to do everything they can to keep Agidi this year, because she has been absolutely unreal all through and through. It's been really awesome to watch. There's no doubt about it in my mind that she is like a first team all-star this season. So awesome to see. There's some other matches going on. As I mentioned, Contolini getting a nice little 3-0 win over Cuneo. As I mentioned, Edinara Brancher with 15 points in this one, and Binto Diop with 12, but only 9 for 26. Masa Puccelli, who's been really good, only 3 for 10 for 6 points. Erica Pritchard was subbed out after the first, was only 2 for 6 as well. And Jalen Keane, 9 for 14 for this team. But yeah, just not a great outing overall for Cuneo. Looking at the standings here, Conegliano continues to be in that first place while they did lose in the Supercopa finals. They are still 7-0 in the league with 20 points. Of course, they did go to 5 that one time in the first match of the year against Busto. Scandicci in second, 7-1 with 19 points. Milano in third, 5-2 with 16 points. Novara in fourth, 5-2 with 15 points, and then Chieri in fifth, 5-2 with 14 points, and Cuneo still in sixth. But after that, like Cuneo, Macerata, Firenze, Valfolia, Busto, even are all teams that have kind of just been floating things around. Bergamo is a team that I expect a lot more of, but we just haven't quite seen it from them. They've only got that one win, but a lot of parity right now in the Lega Volley Femminile. You still have that top, I'm going to say top 5 because Chieri has a nice win over Milano as well. You got the top 5 teams, and then you've kind of got everyone else who's still fighting for some things. As I see Chieri with some good results this past year, getting back on the horse with a nice win over Valfolia after losing to Conegliano this past weekend. Looking forward, we do have the rematch of the Supercopa between Conegliano and Malonza. It was scheduled actually on that same weekend, from the fourth week. I apologize. That is going to be going down on Wednesday the 5th. And you know what? I'll probably do a nice little watch along for that one once again over on Twitch. So you guys should join me there. Other than that, it's going to be a pretty pedestrian weekend in the LVF. Saturday, we've got Chieri against Macerata, and then Scandicci against Bergamo. And then on Sunday, Conegliano against Valfolia, Monviso against Busto, Perugia against Novara, Cuneo against Milano, and then Firenze against Consolini. So, of course, you can check all of those out on VBTV if you'd like to. All right, now moving on from Italy, and of course, just to note, there is no Turkey matchups for quite a while because their teams are playing in the Islamic games, and for some reason, that means that you don't, you're sending a team to play against Afghanistan, but you also don't have to play your league, which is crazy. So we're going to be moving over to the PlusLiga, where, as I mentioned, just a bunch of 3-dongs over this past week. I did talk a little bit about the Skra 3-dong over Gorjuv. We'll talk about Skra in a second, although I'm not sure what the stats are looking like. That Gdansk getting a nice 3-0 win over Suwałki. And I was pretty impressed by Gdansk in this one. They just run a really clean offense. I think Joe Vorsley is doing a really good job over there in Gdansk. And Tobias Brand has been unreal so far this season, coming over from Warszawa, where, there's some felt like maybe he wasn't appreciated. So instead, now he's playing for Gdansk. Went 16 for 25 with a block and two blocks and 2 aces in this one. A really good result for them. And then a couple other big matches. Now, we did have Warszawa taking on JW, and I mean, on one hand, you have a Warszawa team that looks really good. I really like the way they play their volleyball. I just really like the way that Project Warszawa plays volleyball. They play it fast, they run it fast at the outside, and they're just playing fun, loosey-goosey volleyball. Linus Weber was really strong in this one. He continues to be one of the best opposites in the league this year, which really really justifies his number one starting position. He was 14 for 25, led them with 18 points, but it was Kevin Tilley with the MVP. He was 11 for 23 in attack, but then also 75% positive, 31% perfect on 16 targets in serve receive. Also added 2 blocks on that, and he looked really good. He looked absolutely really good. Bartosz Bednorz didn't have the best of matches, but you know what? When you're playing this version of JW, I don't think it really matters. I feel like they really got away with that win against Olsztyn early in the season. Olsztyn is still choosing to run Old Man Hadrava over Arthur Schwartz. I don't know why. He's always good in the first and then really drops off after that. Aussie at Warszawa. Brand was a side dish. Gdansk, he's the main course. That's absolutely true. That is how things have been going. But this JW team. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. Oh no, that's the wrong match. Sorry, that is the wrong match. Aaron Russell does not play for Warszawa. But this JW team, I just have so many questions about. And mostly is, why are you playing Mikhail Gierzo? I just don't understand it. He's been so underwhelming in this one. 2 sets of play, he has a 2 points, going 2 for 7. And that's just really been what's been going down. Right? He's been hitting at 39%, which isn't terrible, but with a 19% efficiency, he's only averaging 2.4 points per set. And this one was even worse than that. His passing is only 37% positive and 10% perfect. When you have Miran Kujundžić coming in off the bench, and this is a guy who was really strong for Skral last year. And, Kujundžić is hitting a 54% with a 42% efficiency, right? 30 points higher than Gierzo, 33% higher, and then passing at a 48% positive and a 33% perfect. To me, Kujundžić would be such a good other option to play opposite from, what's his face? Nick Scherzen. And Scherzen continues to carry this team, but not doing it so very efficiently. He was 12 for 22 with a 36% efficiency. Not terrible, but still not great. And yeah, teams are just going after Gierzo in serve receive, and he's clearly not an option offensively too. And I just don't, this is such a different JSW team from what we've expected over the past few seasons as being really establishing themselves as one of the best teams in the world. And I know that just like Zaxa, they have a main sponsor who have brought down, their funding a little bit, but still, there's better decisions to be made out there, and they're just not. Anton Brema continues to be really good, though. He was 5 for 7 with 2 blocks in this one. He's hitting at a 57% efficiency. But it's just hard when he's not really getting that much volume. As a non-blocking middle, and Brema has a long way to go as a blocking middle, in my opinion. There's only so many ways that you can affect the game, especially when you're just not getting served to. So, or like the ball's just not there for you. Another issue for this JSW team is that they have a Lukas Kaczmarek problem. Right? Kaczmarek is a guy who scored 500 points for them last year throughout the regular season and the playoffs. And right now he's averaging only 2.5 points per set. He's hitting a 37% with an 18% efficiency. So it's like worse than Gierzo. And not getting it done in the block either. He had 2 blocks, but no touches. So this is a guy, only 10 points. They were really looking to be able to rely on Kaczmarek for a lot of things. And I've been a big Lukas Kaczmarek defender in the Discord and just in general. And we haven't really seen it from him so far this year. So JSW needs to figure out a lot of things if they're going to want to be a threat this year. But I honestly think that might not even, I don't even know if that's in the cards for them. I really don't. There's so many middling teams that are trying to figure things out. JSW, Zaxa, Czestochowa. And then there's other teams like Gdansk and Olsztyn who I think look way better than expected. So, yeah, good little win here for Warszawa, but I think this just kind of proves that JSW is really not anywhere near the top of the table this season. Moving forward now to another match that was a 3-dong and that had a lot of conversations going in the Discord. Zavierce 3-dongs Czestochowa 25-17, 25-22, 27-25. We'll start on the Zavierce side of things. I thought they actually looked pretty good. They spread the ball around really, really well. I thought Tavares did a fantastic job. They were led by Matusz Biniak. Biniak led them in points with 16. He was 11 for 17. offensively. He only made that one error with a 58% efficiency. Also had 3 blocks and 2 aces to lead his team with 16 points. But you look how Zavierce ran this offense. 19 attempts for Kolek, 17 for Bolanj, 17 for Bieniek, 12 for Russell. And then you also have the other guy down the middle for this team, Milos Initial, who was 4 for 4 in attack. And I thought that was the big thing for me, is that Zavierce really dominated Czestochowa down the middle. And I don't know what it is about this team and their systems. It doesn't really look like they have any, to be perfectly honest. And the amount of times that Bieniek or Zinoshul were hitting that ball and contact the ball, and they eat it right out of Tavares' hands. And now Tavares is a really athletic setter. He really gets up there. And so their timing is really important, because if they're able to get up there and kind of eat right out of his hands and hit it almost as he's dishing it or just after, it's a really tough ball to block. But the amount of times we were seeing the Norvid Czestochowa middles just kind of sitting there with their hands up as the ball is already past them was way too many for me. Way too many. Aaron Russell with a very, very good, efficient match, 9 for 12 overall, with a block as well. Only got targeted 9 times in service. He was passing 44% positive, which is not terrible at all. So as he gets the things going, that's awesome. He, in my opinion, was an MVP candidate last year, had such a good season. Of course, didn't play at all over this past summer, decided to take it off. So it's going to take him some time to get going. And the same thing for Bartosz Kwolek. He was not so great, 7 for 19, with only a 26% efficiency, but also had 3 blocks and 1 ace. And I'm pretty confident that Kwolek is going to be able to get things together and get things going for this team, because this team is at the Club World Championships this year. They're also going to be in the Champions League. So I'm really excited to see how this team can put things together. But still, a really, really, really good match here for Matusz Bieniek. 16 points down the middle. But on the other side of the court, this one was a divisive conversation in the Discord over the course of this match, and you've got a lot of Luciano De Cecco haters out there. A lot of people who aren't mad or get really upset when De Cecco looks upset. They just want him to be happy all the time. And yet also some people who just don't live in reality and are sitting and be like, oh, De Cecco's only going 40% out there. Which I find that hilarious, because De Cecco actually led his team in digs. He led his team with a third of their digs. He had 7 of their team's 21 digs in this match. Hit the ground on a number of occasions, which, as you know, De Cecco is not really known for his, ball chasing defense. And I will say he did look like he had a pretty bad attitude when they lost to Lviv last Tuesday. But, that was a match where they had a really low efficiency, and he was getting outplayed by a backup nobody Japanese setter who nobody knew until last weekend. And I am my Iggs. I don't think De Cecco is the problem on this team either. One of the bright spots for Czestochowa in this match, and honestly, I thought that this was one of their best matches of the season. I mean, it's an early season. They've only played 3, but you had Jakub Kidos, the young 18-year-old getting the start. 19 points for Czestochowa. He was 15 for 23, hitting a 65% with a 56 efficiency. He also had 2 blocks and 2 aces. Passing really wasn't that great, though. Right? Only 24% positive, but that's kind of what you're expecting from a 19-year-old. Indra also not having a great match either. 12 for 25 with a 28% efficiency. You want to see him be a little bit higher, but man, this team just struggles to pass. And I don't know what type of system they're running on defense. I really don't. There seems to be no relationship between the block and the defense. I don't know what their system is in block either, other than like block ball, right? You're getting beat down the middle, And there was never ever an attempt to, hey, let's commit with the middles. Let's try to get hands in Biniek's face. And also you've got a captain in Milad Abadapor who, like, if you're telling me about guys who look like they don't care about there, for me, it's Milad Abadapor. 7 for 19 in attack, got blocked 5 times, a 10% efficiency. No digs. Sorry, 1 dig on the day. 1 dig on the day. Right? 13 of the 21 digs that this Czestochowa team made were on the right side between Dzeko and Indra. What is going on between their libero, who I think is a big problem, Bartosz Makos, just getting aced out there and not seeming like the amount of times where guys are hitting and he's still moving and can't cover because he's not there in a proper position because he's still moving is ridiculous. Like, this is 16U stuff. This is like academy team stuff where you're stopped when your hitter is hitting. So, yeah, I would assume that's why Dzeko's frustrated. And you've got absolute goobers and stooges in the chat, in the Discord, being like, oh, Dzeko always gets mad at young players. I didn't see him get mad at Jakub Kiros once. But I did see him get mad at Abadapor, who is standing straight up on coverage and missing balls with his feet because he's standing straight up and can't even pass a ball that should be right in his breadbasket. So, yeah, I think there is frustration there for Dzeko. You know, if you want to say about what he did last year for Modena, I think that's fair, but that's not what I saw in this match. All right, so if you guys have a vendetta against Dzeko, it's just very clear to me that you guys aren't watching this match. Because overall, I didn't think that Czestochowa was terrible. They were playing a much better team who was dominating in ways that, you know, they couldn't compete with. They were getting beat on serve receive. They were getting beat down the middle. Their blockers were almost non-existent. They only had 3 blocks in this match compared to the 9 that Zavierce had. And yeah, to me, it was just a much better team beating another good team. So I think we need to look at the coaching of this team for Norvid, because I don't know what type of system they're running. I couldn't tell if they were prioritizing the outsides or prioritizing the middle or prioritizing the pipe ball. So there's so many bad things happening on the Norvid side of the net that maybe that's it. They're just focusing on their own. But man, you need to get your captain to cover some balls. You need to get your captain to dig some balls. So many people out there blaming things on Dzeko, and I don't think you people are watching the games. That's all I really have to say about that. But yeah, Norvid still winless. Where's my standings here? Norvid still winless this season. Zaksa hasn't gotten a win. Gorzów hasn't gotten a win. Czestochowa hasn't gotten a win. Suwałki, still no wins this year. Rusovia picked up a nice little win over Gorzów. Szalpuk led with 14. Karl Bruchen with 13. Not much to talk about there. Wasn't much of a matchup. Matisse Henno was all right. 9 for 21, but only had an 28% efficiency. And then, man, Chizoba. Nothing, like not at all compared to what he was last year. 9 for 22 with a 13% efficiency. This is a guy who really blew up the league, and that has not been the case so far this year. So, I mean, Adnos thought that Gorzów was going to be a potential playoff team, and this team is yet to get a win, and I have yet to see any signs of life from them whatsoever this season. So Varsovia came away with a nice little 3-dong as they continue to go. Another one to talk about here would be Zaksa against Skra, and unfortunately, the stats are only giving me sets 1 through 3, which was actually not the case earlier on, but this one was actually a reverse sweep, which was very surprising. I watched the first 2 sets of this, and I felt like Zaksa had it in the bag. They were really spreading the offense around well. through 3 sets, they had 3 different guys in double digits, all on the outside. It looks like Shimura was doing better. Grobelny was doing better. Rich Licky didn't have to carry the team in the same way that he was before. I mean, Grobelny was 8 for 12 through 3 sets of play. And then I started prepping for the show, expecting for this match to be wrapped up. And that wasn't the case. I am pretty sure that Urbanovic ended with this match with 8 blocks. And to me, it was all... I thought Bart Lemansky looked really good in that like 4th and 5th that I watched along too. But once again, I don't really have stats on this one. But I did say on my Friday show that I thought this match here against Skra would be a really big test. Because once again, Skra out here getting wins without Alan. And once they're able to get Alan, I think that's going to change things quite a bit in terms of their offense. Because right now they're, really relying on like Antoine Patron. Kitigoy was subbed out after 2 sets in this one in place of El Graoui. So I guess that sub made a really big difference for this team because Skra ended up coming back and winning this one. It's 25-21, 25-1 in the first 2 for Zaksa, then 26-24, 27-25, and then 15-13. Going to the limit of each of those sets, and Zaksa starting this season 0-3, which is not what you want to see if you are a Zaksa Czestochowa. And then currently, right now, Olsztyn, Barkham Lviv. Olsztyn is up 2-1 on Lviv. Lviv continues to get led by Lorenzo Pope. He's got 15 right now, hitting 12 for 20 with a 40% efficiency. And you've got Ilya Kovalev as well at 12 for 22. Vasyl Tupchi at 10 for 19. So all 3 outsides doing a really good job. And let's see, did they start? No, they didn't start Yamato. Yamato. Yeah, Yamato. Nakano. I've got Yamamoto on the brain for non-volleyball reasons, unfortunately, right now. But Lviv looking to force a 5th set here. So that's all we'll really say about this one going on. Coming up this week, tomorrow, we've got Gorzów taking on Zavierce, and then we have a Polish Super Cup match between Lublin and JW. Of course, JW, not the team that they once were this past year, so we're going to give advantage Lublin on this one. Olsztyn against Gdansk on Thursday. I think that is going to be a pretty exciting game. I think both the games on Thursdays, to me, are kind of must-watches. Olsztyn against Gdansk is 2 teams who have made some really good changes. I think you've got 2 fantastic setters with Johannes Thiele for Olsztyn, and then Joe Worsley at Gdansk, both guys who have been running their offenses really, really well. So that one is going to be the early game going on at, I believe it's 11:30 or even 10:30 Eastern time. No, 11:30 Eastern time. That makes sense. And then later on that day, Warszawa against Resovia. 2 of the favorites, in my opinion, 2 of the favorites this year in the PlusLiga going on head-to-head. And then a classic match after that. Zaksa taking on JSW. Both of these teams looking to turn around their fortunes a little bit on Saturday with the early one. Zavierce will take on Helm. And then Sunday, we'll see Lublin take on Skra and Czestochowa take on Suwałki. So that's what things have been going on in the PlusLiga so far this week. All right, moving on now. We're just going to touch on to the LNV really quickly. Just going down the list of what happened this past week. I did, as I mentioned on that Friday show, Toulouse went to the limit with Poitiers, ended up taking it 3-2 to stay undefeated 4-0 with 11 points at the top of the standings. Toulouse won against Saint-Nazaire 3-1. Plessis Robinson got a 3-2 win over Montpellier. We'll talk about that one in just a sec. Caen beaten Chaumont 3-1. Chaumont still winless with no points, 0-4. You hate to see it as they've been, once again, I talked about it on Friday. If you didn't watch it, go back and watch my little segment about Chaumont, because that was a team that they haven't finished outside of the top 3 since 2016. But they have had a lot of turnover on that roster, losing the majority of the roster, and just not really doing well, dealing with some injuries as well this season. Tourcoing got a 3-1 win over Sète. Paris beat Ajaccio 3-1, and then Narbonne beat Nice 3-2 as well. But as I said, I wanted to talk about Plessis Robinson getting a win over Montpellier, and now do want to talk about Montpellier because they are a Champions League team this year, led by Matias Sanchez, who did not have one of the great setting matches this year. Montpellier hit a 46% with a 23% efficiency, whereas Plessis Robinson hit a 50% with a 35% efficiency, led by my guy, Max Elgert. And Elgert, by all accounts, has been absolutely cooking for this team this year, this Plessis Robinson team. You know, like when I look at these two rosters, there's very few guys on the Ibu, the Owls. Plessis Robinson is like, there's very few guys that I recognize on this team. Whereas Montpellier, you've got Matias Sanchez, you got Ezequiel Palacios, Nicolas Le Goff, Simon Hirsch, Quentin Jouffroy, all on this team. Maxime Hervois as well, former Ohio State Buckeye. And Montpellier couldn't come out with the win, mostly due to Marin Dukic, the technically he's technically from Belgium via Volleybox. Belgium, France with, I guess he's Bosnian as well too. Dukic coming in off the bench in place of Brett Wildman in the third set. And Dukic going 15 for 20. 15 for 20 with no errors, hitting a 75% efficiency in this match as Plessis Robinson moves into third place in the LNV. And as I talked about, Chaumont struggling in this one. They have moved Pasteur to the bench, brought in Alexandros Raptis for the first time this year. He was all right. Actually, less than all right. He was 9 for 31 in this match, as Chaumont really struggling to find ways to score efficiently. Whereas Caen, led by Xander Kuczynski, 16 for 42. Would like to see that, a bit of a lower number, but still nice little win there from Caen. All right, now I'm going to finish things up just talking a little bit about the SV League. And now it does seem like there has been a bit of a sickness going around the SV League, and I'm not saying that as a hyperbole. It sounds like an actual sickness. Matt Neves, who had a really good first week for Nagano, wasn't even on the roster this week. I reached out to him. He just said that he's dealing with a little bit of something and wasn't on the roster. Didn't get to play, and that was similar to Bartosz Kurek as well, who wasn't on the roster for the Tokyo Great Bears. But whereas last week there was a lot of splits, this one was a little bit more straightforward. J-Tech got 2 wins over the Toray Arrows. Osaka Blution, or Bortheon, as it says with the translation here, got a couple of 3-dongs over Voleas Hokkaido. Osaka, the Suntory Sunbirds, got 2 wins over Tokyo as well too. And then Sakai, the Blazers, and Hiroshima split their season. So first and foremost, I just want to talk briefly about the J-Tech and Toray matchup. J-Tech is DeFalco, Stéphane Boyer. This is a team that is really trying to figure things out. Last year, they had Sakita and Miura and DeFalco and Lucarelli, and now they've had to move Lucarelli to the bench. We did see him briefly, whereas Toray, led by Kirill Kretz, 38 points in this one, 35 for 68 offensively. And then Cardenas, the Cuban, was struggling. So we finally got to see Taylor Averill come in off the bench, went 6 for 4 in attack, but with 6 blocks for 10 points in the first match in this one. Boyer, led the way offensively for J-Tech in this match. He had 28 points, but only with a 24% efficiency. He was 24 for 59 overall. But it ended up being a 5-set win for J-Tech. And then match number 2, J-Tech really just stopped playing with their food, and they started really feeding it to DeFalco, and he was really good. Once again, 22 points in this one. He was 22 for 42 with a 40% efficiency, also a couple blocks. And Boyer still struggling to stay super efficient, 10 for 25, but he did add 4 blocks and 2 aces to his totals in this one, whereas Torre couldn't get it done. Cardenas was playing a little bit better. He was 10 for 25 with 4 blocks and an ace for 15 points, and Kretz had 23 points, 21 for 48. But you know what? I don't know. J-Tech was in the final last year, and I really just don't see it for them this year. Last year they had Ogawa, they had Sakita, they had Miura as well. All of those guys gone, and really just trying to rely on Boyer and DeFalco. Also Kentaro Takahashi as well down the middle, who actually had a pretty good match number 2, 8 for 32 attacking with a 62% efficiency and 4 blocks as well. Next up, Suntory taking on the ailed Tokyo Great Bears, and first match, all Suntory, 18 for Kliuka, 17 for Mazursky, 15 for Ran. Just Sakita back and running that offense like a well-oiled machine, whereas Vicentin led the way for Tokyo with 15 points. And then match number 2, Vicentin had a huge match. He had 27 points. He was 21 for 39 with 4 blocks and 2 aces. You also had Kroza Mernick, who was massive, 7 for 12 down the middle with 6 blocks. And then Masahiro Yanagita as well, 16 for 34 for 20 points. But it still wasn't enough, as Mazursky, continuing his monstrous ways, had 32 points in this matchup. He was 26 for 44. Ran added another 15, and Kliuka had another 10, while Onodera had 10 points down the middle, going 9 for 11 with a block. Love to see it. Also, Nippon Sakai Blazers. Sorry, Nippon is Japan in Japanese, but Sakai Blazers losing the first match to Cooper Robinson and the Hiroshima Thunders. Robinson, 12 points, 9 for 25, and only a 4% efficiency. So it was not the best match from him. But over on the other side, Matt Anderson struggling in the opposite position. Was he playing opposite? Yeah. He must have been. Oh, no, because they had Ulrich Dahl out there. So he was on the left side. Matt Anderson, not with a great outing. 9 points, 9 for 28 with a 21% efficiency. And they brought in Rinaldi halfway through the second. Rinaldi ended up with 10 points, 8 for 13 with a block and an ace. But then in match number 2, Matt Anderson came back alive for 18 points to lead his team. Also had Kenta Takanashi with 19 points. Anderson, 17 for 28, and Takanashi, 15 for 28. They did not play Rinaldi, as they kept in Ulrich Dahl all the way through, 11 for 22. And Hiroshima going with Roque, the Brazilian, with 16 points. He was 13 for 28. And then Cooper Robinson with a much better outing this time for 12 for 28 with a 32% efficiency, 2 blocks, and an ace. Also passing not bad as well. 33% positive on 30 targets. So Cooper Robinson really going to be getting some reps out there in Japan. Also, Wolf Dogs Nagoya taking on Nagano without Matt Neves. They won the first match in 5 and then got a 3-dong in the second. And as I mentioned before, Osaka leading with a 2 3-dongs in this one over Voreas Hokkaido. Just looking at the standings really quick here. Blue Tion, Nagoya, Suntory Sunbirds, and JTech all at the top of the standings with 3 and 1. Nagano, Hiroshima in the middle of the standings in the 5-6 spot at 2 and 2. And then you've got Toray Arrows, Tokyo Great Bears, the Sakai Blazers, and Voreas Hokkaido all at the bottom at 1 and 3. I would expect to see Tokyo really move up as Bartosz Kurek comes back into the fold, because they've got Tokyo has 4 different foreigners with who do they have? They have Bartosz Kurek, they have Alexander Ferreira, who's still injured. They have Luciano Vicentin and, of course, Jan Kozamernik. So some different options there. Suntory will be the team headed to the Club World Championships. And I mean, that's a pretty damn good team. That is a pretty damn good team all around. So I'm excited to see how they can do against the big dogs from Europe and whatever other random teams we're going to get at the Club World Championships. Okay. Moving forward, looking, let's see what is going to come up this weekend. Tokyo will be taking on Nagano. We'll have Hokkaido taking on Sakai. Toray Arrows Shizuoka taking on Osaka Blue Tion. Hiroshima Thunder will take on JTech Sting. So we'll get TJ DeFalco against Cooper Robinson in that one. And then the Wolf Dogs Nagoya taking on the Suntory Sunbirds. That one should actually be a really good matchup. So if anyone I can tune, that's going to be an earlier one in the day too. It might be a little too late, but still. I did tune into a little bit after my Blue Jays lost the World Series, Game 7, extra innings. It was crushing. But I will give a shout out to Yamamoto, the Dodgers pitcher. He was absolutely unreal. Shohei Ohtani, meh. Very meh. He was fantastic in the games that he was good, but Yamamoto was absolutely deadly, and he very, very rightly so won the MVP. So congratulations to the Dodgers and their fans, whatever. Yeah. All right. I think that's about it for today's episode of the Volleyball Journal. Appreciate all of you who tuned in to come hang out. Still an hour and a half, still an hour and 20 minutes. So still a little bit longer than I'd like it to be, but we'll get there. Once again, I probably will be going live. I definitely will be going live on Friday to recap everything that's happened over this past week. If you haven't yet joined the Volleyball Source Discord, it's the best online volleyball community in the world. If you want to hear me talk about something, just let me know, maybe in the chat, or come into the Discord and, at me, at that volleyball guy on the Discord. And I hope you guys have a great week. I will probably see you on Wednesday. I'll probably do a nice little watch along to watch Conegliano against Malonza. And then Thursday, maybe Thursday too, depending. I have got some meetings on Thursday, but maybe I'll be able to work in one of those matches. Okay? So I hope you guys have a great week. I will see you soon. Yes, Peter. Osaka Suntory, because there's a lot of Osaka teams. Suntory Sunbirds will be playing at the Club World Championships as well. Cool. So hope you all have a great week. Adios. À la prochaine. Bye.